I don't look at challenges. Don't be scared of anything. We go and we go to win. It doesn't matter who we're playing against. I'm a coach that connects with people before I connect with the player.
Mauro, we're here at the Ontario Soccer Centre, only a couple days away from your home opener. How are you feeling?
Good. I'm excited. I think this week was kind of a tough one. I think if there's anything that I want to do is be on the pitch and obviously be able to perform and be in my happy place.
Yeah.
But it was also good to obviously see competition, have an extra week to prepare. So extremely excited for what's to come.
How are you feeling about the new FMV system being added into the game? It's another element to kind of review.
Yeah, I mean, we have to prep for it, right? I think there's a lot of adding pieces to our game. I've been talking to the players. Obviously, when you grow up with certain rules, and all of a sudden you got to change that. Those habits have to be installed. And the reality is, we've had preseason games with where we try to mimic a little bit of the rules. We obviously in training have stipulated some exercises already with those rules. So. I think it's beneficial. I think it's to help the game grow.
Yeah.
So it's something that we're ready for. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be exciting. But I'm all about for it.
Now, I want to start off early in your career. I know you talked previously in other interviews about you moved here, started playing soccer here in Canada, and then when your family moved back to Portugal, that there was a bit of a kind of jump in the development for you. I just wanted to talk about a little bit about your early stages, your introductions to the technical side, the tactic side. Kind of what was the difference between playing originally here in Canada, moving to Portugal? How did that kind of shape your development?
The passion that I had was always something very present, and that came initially from my family. And why I started with this is because when I played in Canada, kind of kicked the ball around for the first couple of times. My coach was my dad. And he didn't really know how to speak English. So for my dad to do what he wanted to do, which was coach his kid, his first kid, which was myself, my mom had to come into the picture. So my mom was the assistant coach. My mom knew nothing about the game, but she was the translator. So I always had a European view of the game, and why? Because of my dad. My dad was always involved in everything that I did, especially in that early stages in house league, and when I started to travel, and then obviously in elementary school you make your team and all that stuff. So he was very involved in how I've developed. Once I got into a later stage, still living in Canada, I got invited to go into a travel team, which we played out of Windsor, but there was a lot of, obviously because of the proximity, there was a lot of tournaments out in the Michigan area. So at that point was when he kind of gave me wings and let me fly, and then started taking over my brother's development. But I would say the biggest difference from developing at a young age here, and then still considering a young age when I went to Portugal, I think the biggest thing was how much it meant. Obviously, at home, soccer was always the number one sport. From talking about it, playing, watching games with my dad, it was always the number one sport. But I felt sometimes when I went to certain teams, it was just a sport. If it was kind of a hobby, if hockey wasn't around or if basketball wasn't around, and fair play, obviously we're it's a different culture, and you get exposed to a lot of different things. But I would say the biggest difference from playing youth soccer in Canada and playing youth soccer in Portugal, I would say is the passion, is how much it actually meant. I think when I went back to Portugal, every U14, U15, U16 game on the weekend was a final. And if you weren't up for it, there was someone on the bench ready to be up for it. And it meant to everyone. It meant to the water boy, it meant to the subs, it meant to the starters, it meant to the coach, to the assistant, to the, at 13, 14, there is a fan base of certain clubs already in Portugal. It's not just your parents cheering you on. So that culture aspect, that passion for the sport, I think is probably the biggest difference.
Now you talk about your parents obviously were the first coaches that you had you tell me a little about some other coaches that influenced you as you're going, even maybe thinking about, oh, this is what it's like to be a coach, or that kind of shaped that journey for you?
I mean, growing up, obviously you have your first coaches that kind of teach you the hard lessons, and then also, give you that passion. My dad was one coach that, I still remember a lot that he taught me. But two coaches in particular that I had in Canada. One was one of my friends' dad, Poncho. He had a spark on him. He made it fun. He understood, that he had to develop kids, but at the same time, it had to be a fun environment. And he taught me a lot. And then obviously going into travel, coach that I had at FC Nationals, Dave Rimber, he was, for me, someone that taught me, some tough lessons. He saw potential in me. He gave me some freedom to continue to grow. But he told me everything that was kind of true. If I had to go on the bench, he'd be the first one to tell me, and he explained to me why. And as a 13, 14-year-old, those things are hard to hear at times.
Yeah.
But the reality is, still today, whenever I go down there, he reaches out, I reach out, and we have a good relationship. Obviously, then going into football a little bit more seriously. When I went to Portugal, I had a German coach called Michael Kiemel, ex-international, played pro for multiple years in Bundesliga in Portugal, and he taught me that, I think he was probably the first one that I really said, okay, to be a soccer player, you got to be an athlete. For someone that didn't like running, he definitely put me in the best shape I've ever been in, and it really opened my eyes that, yes, before we're soccer players, before we're footballers, we have to be athletes, because especially now in the game, obviously has evolved so much. If you're not fit, you can't cope. And obviously, the higher you go, the more games you have during the week. And that fitness aspect, I think, is number one. So I'd say during my development, those three coaches, for different matters, marked me, and they're people that I still remember today.
That's amazing. Now, as you were kind of going through, and I know probably for you, your career ended as a player, not as you would have liked with your knee injuries, but what was the kind of process of transitioning into coaching? I know you started your youth at Calgary Foothills, correct, doing youth coaching?
Yeah.
Was that something where before you injured, were you thinking about going into coaching, or was it kind of as you were getting?
Everything kind of fell into place without me really having a plan, to be honest with you. While I was recovering from one knee injury, I was still kind of, trying to, continue my career. But at that point, I had recovered from my second knee injury. I was feeling fit. I was feeling fine. But COVID came around. And it was that kind of indecision. Well, there's game on the weekend, there isn't, and, we have to isolate. So there was a bunch of, very new things that no one was used to, and I started thinking, okay, well, I have some free time now. What do I want to do when this is all done? I was playing in third division then in Portugal. It was considered a semi-pro environment, and I was thinking, okay, well, when this is done, it can be done in a year, it can be done in 5 years, but what do I want to do? So I started taking a bunch of courses. I took my sporting director's course, I took a coaching course, I took a management course. So I did a lot of coaching, a lot of courses that I wanted to potentially have and be useful for me to stay in soccer. So I didn't know where I wanted to be in soccer, but I knew I wanted to be in soccer. And, I took all those courses. Obviously, time was going by. I was still playing. I started talking to a couple of people that I have crossed paths with in soccer, some that had retired, some that went to coaching, some that went to management, whatever it was. And I got the opportunity after talking to Jay Wielden, and he was at Calgary Foothills, between him and Leon Hopgood, that is now at New York FC. They were saying, well, what do you want to do? Like, do you want to come and coach? It's not at professional level, but what the academy is looking like. And obviously I knew them from my time at Calgary FC. So I said, listen, if you guys have an opening, I'll come. I know how the city is. I know how the club is. I trust you guys. So let's, thank you for, sticking your hand out. I'll join you guys. And that's what I did. I went in initially to do U11 and U13 boys. a big reality check. You can't obviously yell at them and tell them kind of how you feel. But I think it was a necessary pass for where I am today. Thankfully, soccer was always something that I was comfortable in. I was made a professional career out of it. And to be able to actually go into certain details that to me came naturally and I had to teach them was definitely an eye-opener. How to teach a kid, doesn't matter what, but how to teach a kid a passion, a sport that it came to you naturally was something that really got me thinking. So that journey with Calgary Foothills lasted about 9 months, and from then starting with very young boys from the age of 11 to 13, I ended up managing the whole boys performance center, and obviously helping Jay Wielden with the U21. So as my time there kept on growing, my role and my responsibilities as well, and it was something I was extremely passionate about. To be able to see young players develop and have the same passion as I do was great. And still today I have a good relationship with the young players that I coached, and then again their family members and everything. So it was a very, very positive experience.
It's amazing. Now you get brought over after that here to what was formerly York United. Curious about the time where you stepped in as interim head manager. First time you're leading a professional division. What was that experience like?
It was I don't even have words, to be honest with you. I think that month of my life was insane. Was insane. Obviously, as you guys know, I had just came back from obviously my parents' funeral, and we'd had a game, and then obviously Nashi had left, and they had told me that they were looking for a coach, and obviously I was Nashi's guy because he brought me here, he gave me the opportunity. So it was kind of mixed feelings, but the reality in professional sports, you got to do what you got to do, and you got to sometimes put your emotions to the side. So that first week of preparation was very new for me. You start hearing your voice a lot more. You start, the players start looking at you with different eyes of, okay, what do you want us to do? And you have to be someone that more often, gives them an answer, because at the end of the day, players want to get better, and you got to kind of have to guide them. And what I found during, that 2-week process was I couldn't obviously put my print on the team. What I wanted them to be was to be competitive and have someone that they can trust, and obviously, getting them into a better place. So it was very new. Obviously, you don't really, there's no book or there's no course that you kind of take in how to be an interim manager, but it's something that still today I talk about the experience, I talk about those feelings, I talk about those moments, because I had the best of both worlds. In my first game, I was able to win the game, and I felt like the best coach in the world. And then in my second one, I lost, and then you go downhill, right? So that roller coaster is something that is very present in a coach's life, is really present in the professional environment. And I was able to feel that, and extremely grateful to get always 3 points. And then right now, that lesson of that loss that I had to forge away was also a feeling that I think was necessary to go through.
Did you feel like your process changed when you went back to becoming an assistant coach, where you're like, okay, I've done it leading a team, I want to get back to that? Like, did your process change how you viewed kind of those meetings?
Yeah, it definitely gave me a taste of something that I liked. I went and I sat in that chair, I tasted it, and I was like, I kind of like being here. But the reality was, then extremely thankful for how the process went with the senior staff here at the club. They said right off the bat that they were going to look for someone, and and for the meantime, it would be my opportunity, but they still wanted me part of the project. So yeah, it was something that when I went back into my role, I was already expecting to go back into that role. It did change a little bit because I saw how powerful a coach can be, in the good sense. I think if everybody, walks on the same line, if everybody, does what they all have to do, the music that the band plays is a lot better. And at times, as an assistant, not really having that sat down on that head coach chair, I thought potentially a lot more had to come from the players. But after that, and obviously now, I think the coach has so much power to be able to put players in a position so they can succeed.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer that if you guide an individual to success, everything else behind that comes, right? And he's going to help his teammate, he's going to help whoever's beside him. And those 2 weeks in particular taught me that, because a lot of players came to me with a lot of questions, and I had to make sure, again, the flutes were where the flutes had to be, the pianos were where the pianos had to be, and on the weekend that music was nice and fine.
That's amazing. So then get into the process of, you get the job. Was that something that you felt like you were ready to step into at the time? Was it a moment of just, I'm going to take this risk, whether I feel 100% ready, and just kind of grow into the role? What was that like early on in the last season?
Initially, no. Initially, it was something that, because I had a good relationship also with Benja, we had talked about, us becoming a staff, us becoming, a team that could travel around the world. And obviously, as you know, every coach has their staff. And that's something that he wanted. It was on top of the table. So when the club came to me and said, listen, we want to have you on, want to interview you, start the whole process with you, my first opinion was like, okay, well, these guys want to risk it with me. I'm extremely thankful for it. But I had a plan, right? And that plan with Benja. So speaking to Benja after, and obviously speaking back home, I said, it's the golden train. It's the train that sometimes only comes once, and it's up to you. You have the decision. The ticket's right there. Everything's right there. It's either up to you to go in or to come out. And obviously, shortly after reflecting for not much more than half an hour, I said, let's do it. I think I have an emotional attachment to this club, to this city for multiple reasons. This city, even though it's not my city, I didn't have much contact with Toronto before I came here. But the reality is, if there's a city that has seen me grow and kind of professionally and off the pitch as well, has been Toronto. The ownership, when they came in, they saw potential in me, they saw growth in me, and they basically said, here are the keys, go on and drive the car. So it was definitely a good feeling, a feeling of trust, a feeling of big responsibility. And again, I feel like I'm privileged to say that I'm at a club that I'm extremely passionate about. I'm passionate about not only the badge that we have, but the people around me. So I couldn't ask for anything better.
Looking back at that first season, where you're the youngest head coach in North America in the first division, how does it feel looking back? How do you feel like you did? Where were the areas that you grew the most? Looking back, you're like, was the tactics changed? Are you kind of like looking forward to the next year? Like, I do something differently. Where would you say the biggest areas you grew?
I think obviously as a head coach, you always have the focus that you want to win. In this league in particular, I think it's extremely competitive, and I knew it was competitive, and that was kind of the first thought process. I said, listen, I want a competitive team. In my life, I like to challenge everything. I like to, go front-footed to everything, and I don't back down, and that's kind of the image that I want out of my team. That mindset at times is hard to get out of people, because you're not only taking care of 1, 2, 4, 5 players, you're taking care of a whole team, you're taking care of a whole technical staff, you're taking care of a whole medical staff, and it's a lot of people to kind of just say, don't be scared of anything. We go to win. It doesn't matter who we're playing against. So changing that mindset was something that I thought would be easier. I had some difficulties passing that message across to the players, even though they would show up on weekends and would perform and would battle. Having that mentality 7 days a week, 24 hours a day is tough, right? And at times during the week, I felt that players were just cruising. And I thought it would be easier on my end to be able to change that mindset for the players. So that's something I struggled with at the beginning, until I got to the stage where I learned what every player needed to be triggered to have that type of mentality. So again, you're dealing with over 50 people. You got to know them inside out. You got to know what triggers them and what doesn't, for them to be able to perform then on the weekend. So that aspect is something that I struggled with, but I grew during the year. And then the biggest thing I think was the same roller coaster that I went through when I stepped in as a manager a year before in that Halifax and Forge game. I think that was kind of where I was really hard on myself. You're talking about someone that jumps into to a project as their, as you said, as a young head coach, as his first year. And don't get me wrong, in the first 7 games, we only had 4 points. So in 7 games, we had 1 win, 1 tie, and 5 losses. I was extremely hard on myself. I was extremely hard on the players. I was extremely hard on the staff. And at times, I don't know, looking back now, obviously, I don't know if I managed those moments quite well. Just needed to win a couple games so I can get my good mood back in. But yeah, I would say that those 7 weeks, emotionally, I let the result take care of me. But the reality is, after we turned the page, after we were be able to get good wins and more wins and good performances, I actually went back and saw those seven games, and if you ask me, that was probably 7 of the best games that we played all season. We have a first half against Halifax in our home opener, where we could be easily winning 4-0, and we end up losing that game 2-1. We go to Calgary. We have an excellent game. We're on top of the game. We end up losing 2-1. We have a 2-2 draw with Ottawa that obviously ran last year with the playoff title, and we could have been at halftime or at the end of the game, winning by 3-4 goals. So that first period, those 7 weeks, made me also realize I'm on a project that I need to develop. I need to develop players. I need to develop a style of play. And the reality is, I think if you ask anybody today, do they know who Enter Toronto is? Do they know what a team of Mauro Eustaquio is? I think they do. I think we're on the front foot. I think we're aggressive. I think we're a team that is always in games, and we're extremely offensive. I think there's maybe 1 game last year that we didn't score. Everything else, we knew that we had goals in us and we were gonna attack teams. So yeah, I would say if I had to pick, 3 areas of growth and that I got better, was not letting results take care of my emotional aspect, understanding that everything takes time and changing mentalities is a big one, and then just making sure that I have that identity. It's something that I believe in, and that's something that I want to carry on for the rest of my life.
Now, going back to those kind of learning to manage those results emotionally, has there been tools, because you haven't, the last couple of years hasn't been easy for you, I know, and so has there been tools that you've kind of developed within yourself to build that resilience, to build that, be able to just move on to the next thing?
Yeah, I don't look at challenges, to be honest. As if there's something that that I take on from my professional life to my normal life, my daily life, is I don't look at challenges. Anything that comes in my way, I look for solutions, and then I make the decision, is it actually that important for me to lose sleep? I'm someone that focuses or I like to focus on things that actually matter to me, with people that actually matter to me. And then if I don't really have to lose time with it, I don't really care.
Yeah.
And I think that's the reality. Some people can say, I'm kind of cold-blooded or whatever it is, and I don't think that's right. I think, I'm warm and connected when I have to be, but I also have learned how to switch off with things that, for me, if they don't bring me benefit, don't bring me joy, then I really don't care. So.
Now, how would you describe yourself, or maybe it's actually better to ask, how would somebody else describe you as a coach? What kind of coach are you? Are you here to talk about the man managers or the more tactic focused managers? How would you, or somebody that knows you well, describe you as a coach?
As a coach, I don't know how they would describe me, but I like to think that I'm a coach that connects with people before I connect with the player. I think that's something that I personally like to do. That's something that I like to try. I think when you connect with someone first, you can then be able to kind of tell them how it is. Players aren't perfect. Players make mistakes, but then it's up to you to tell them literally on the spot, listen, you didn't do that right, or listen, do it this way, so I'll help you grow. So building that trust between Mauro and human, I'm not gonna call him a player, because I'd like to connect with the human that the player is. So that would be one thing that I think people or players look at me and say that I'm first a human, and then I'm a coach. And then the second one is I like to think that our style of play is an aggressive style of play. And when I say aggressive, not in the bad way, I think when I say aggressive is we're front-footed. We're a team that we like to win our duels. We like to have that first pass forward. We like to go to goal. It's something that I'm passionate about. Like I said before, I don't back down of any challenge, and I think my team has shown that they don't back down. They're extremely competitive because it matters. I think that is the biggest thing is connecting as a human, to show them that every duel, every little space in the game matters for us to be able to then at the end of the day celebrate those 3 points. Yeah.
All right, now looking forward to season 2, being a head coach, what are the goals that you've set for this year? The things that you talked about in the locker room of saying, okay, this is what we did in year 1, but how are we building for the second year?
I think obviously we've shown intent to do better, a lot better than we did last year. I think if you ask people last year what they thought we would be, a lot of people would potentially even say that we wouldn't have made the playoffs. A lot of people would say that after 21 games, which is 3 ways around, we would be out of the playoff picture. And the reality is we were fighting for that 3rd place until basically the third last game. So when I look back, I think we were extremely close to being where we wanted to be. But the reality is it was a very positive season. Like I said, we signed that letter of intent to show that we want more. I think we brought in experienced players. I think we brought players that know how to win. We brought players that like how to win, and we have a bunch of not only players but staff that have won titles. And I think for us to be ambitious, there's no point of running away from that responsibility, is we want to win. We want this season to be a championship winning season, and I think we have the ability to go into this season with the mindset that we're winning a title. If it's the cup, if it's the regular season, if it's the playoffs, I think that has to be our ambition.
Now take me into kind of the coaches room a little bit. You talk about you brought in coaches to assist you who have won the titles, who have kind of been there before. What does that look like behind the scenes as you guys are kind of meeting together, preparing for sessions? What is like your kind of structure, how you run your meetings?
I think the biggest thing is, number one, having everybody on the same page. But by everybody be on the same page, I still don't want a bunch of yes men. And the good thing about our staff is we all see the end goal. We all believe in the same style of play. Now we just have obviously certain opinions about certain aspects, right? And what I like about my staff now is obviously it's year 2 that we're working together. They already know what I want. We've talked about football between all of us more than we've talked about anything. And what I like about my staff is I set down this is what I think the plan is, offensively, defensively, what the transitions look like, who I'm thinking for starting 11 or whatnot. And 90% of the times they'll agree on a lot of it, and then obviously they're always going to have their opinion. Listen, what about this, or what about that, or why not put this player instead of this player, or if we want to have a trap on the left side, why not on the right? And the good thing about that is they explain why, right? We're able to have those healthy debates of, well, you said this, but I think that. Well, what if they show up like this? What can we do there? So I'm someone that I listen. I'm someone that I obviously like organized and like I don't know if respect is not the right word, but I like to be, this is where we argue in this meeting room. Once we leave the doors, we're all on the same page, and then it's us against the players, and they have to then be convinced that this is the right way and all that stuff. So my meetings, we break the week pretty similar. If we play Saturday, Sunday, pretty similar. Very heavy on meetings at the beginning of the week, because obviously then towards the end of the week it's just the small little details, obviously giving the players the confidence that they need and the clarity that they need to then be able to perform.
That's awesome. Now, for players or for coaches, young coaches who are coming up, who are looking at what you've done and are saying, I want to replicate what Mauro's done, or I want to get into coaching at the professional level, do you have any advice for saying, this is what you need to do, these are the areas that you need to focus on?
Watch a lot of football. I think that's the biggest thing. I have my WhatsApp group with my boys back in Portugal, and obviously there's a time difference, and I wake up here sometimes at 6 in the morning, 7 in the morning on a Sunday day off. And my fiance is saying, where are you going? Well, there's a third division, a second division game that I just want to see it. And the good thing about that, I feel, is by watching more, but not watching while you're scrolling on your phone, literally just sitting down, cup of coffee and watching the game. I think that allows you, that tests you, and it also gives you what I find the personality or the belief that what you're doing is doing something good. Today I watch games and I say, that team should be doing this. And sometimes I'm talking about, the Liverpools of the world, the Benficas of the big teams, and I think, no, this player should be doing that, or this team could be doing that. And that just gives me the belief that we're doing something proper. Mm-hmm. Like, we actually are dialed into what we think is the best way of playing soccer, or is the best way to give us results for soccer. Obviously, our championship or our league is different from what it is in Europe. Players are different, everything's different. But that would be my biggest advice: is watch as much as you can. The wheel is already invented. Coaches were a bunch of thieves. We just steal ideas from everybody and then we try to glue them together. Don't be, I'm a Pep guy, I just gonna watch where Guardiola as coach, or I'm a Klopp guy, I'm just gonna no. Steal the best from what you think is from every coach. Obviously put your spices into that bowl as well, and create your style of play. I think be passionate about it. Don't be scared. Don't be scared, I think is a big one as well, because as coaches and we're horrible people, because if there's someone in this world that's always yelling and that's always correcting and that's always arguing as a coach, and that sometimes has you shy away from that responsibility. Things aren't going your way and you're like, what, I'm gonna switch everything I believe in, and my 3-4-3, I'm gonna play a 5-3-2, whatever it is. Don't be scared. So number one, watch a lot of football. Be a good thief, and don't be scared.
Nice. Thank you, Mauro.
Thank you, appreciate it.